Welcome to Slow and Steady, the podcast where you get to follow along as we figure out how to build products and recover from burnout. I'm Benedikt.
And I'm Brian. Each week, we'll give you an honest peek into our lives as we figure things out. Today is February 2nd, and I'm feeling a bit frazzled.
This is episode number 76, and I'm feeling exhausted.
Oh, no. Sorry to hear that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's how it is. I'll talk more about this later in this episode. But before we get going, we should probably mention SaaS Summit.
Yeah.
Kindly asked us to mention it. It's hosted by user.com. Thinking about it's probably a competitor to UserList, but whatever. They're hosting a great summit about automating your SaaS growth. Jane will be speaking there, but so will Asia Orangio, Gia Lodi, Patrick Campbell, Rand Fishkin.
That's a pretty stellar list of folks.
Yeah, and it goes on. Like that's just like the things, the names that stood out to me just from like scrolling through the page once. Like Brennan Dunn is on there. Like anyone that has like something smart to say about SaaS and SaaS marketing is probably speaking there.
Well, that's not true because you're not there. But yeah, April Dunford, Brennan Dunn, West Bush. Yeah, man, there's a killer list. Cool. So SaaS Summit. It's 2 S's there in the middle. SaaSsummit.user.com.
Yeah, it's February 11th to 12th, I think. So coming next week, coming up next week. Yeah.
Yep. 11th to 12th. Cool. All right. Well, I'll for sure have to tune in on some of those.
Yeah. I'm sure some of them will be quite interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So,
what's happening on your end? You're exhausted.
Yeah. Like I have a suspicion that something on our server, backend, whatever, is somehow connected to my bed. Because whenever I go to sleep, things break. Like today has been the second day in a row where I woke up, got my phone, opened email, and had like 90 alerts from monitoring.
Oh my word. Okay.
And I haven't fully figured out what's going on, but sometimes our background processing just deadlocks. Like it entirely hangs up and doesn't process any jobs anymore. And then when I wake up, like it's funny. Like yesterday, I can see in the monitoring, basically the exact moment where I went to bed, things started to go wrong, and it didn't properly process things for like 8 hours or so until I woke up. And I'm not entirely sure what's happening. That's the problematic thing about this. I've been poking at this, and maybe I have a solution, but I don't know for sure. Like it's one of those issues that are hard to reproduce because I think it only happens under certain high load conditions. And I think it's related to some locking mechanisms in the Sidekick library for unique jobs that we're using. But that's only a hunch. Like I don't know for sure. At least I can see in the monitoring that it hangs on a particular call to Redis for like 20 minutes or so, or even longer than that.
Well, so that's what I was about to ask is, the back end process keeps hanging up. Like that could be a ton of things. So just in case people are listening, I mean, specifically, so you're talking about, is there a particular Redis job or is there a particular Sidekick thing? Like what have you been able to identify that specifically? What are some more specific what's happening?
Yeah, it looks like it's not like one specific job type or anything. Like it's all of them in a way. Maybe not all of them, but enough that it occupies all worker threads on all running jobs, on all running processes. At least, actually, that's probably not entirely true, but it occupies the stuff that basically drives everything else. So we have like messaging dynos and messaging queues and stuff like that. Those are probably still running, but nothing is sending messages into those anymore because the other part is just like locking up entirely.
Gotcha. And this is all on Heroku, right? You're
Yeah.
still entirely on
Yeah.
Heroku.
Yeah.
Okay. Do they have? Is there like? I have no idea. Are there tools that? I mean, sounds silly, but that monitor your monitoring that can kind of sniff out and like diagnose patterns and things like that, or it's just so much art in
Yeah.
there to. Yeah.
I think I think our monitoring is decent in terms of like we
Yeah.
get plenty of data.
Yeah.
But this particular one is like just super hard to debug because the job isn't failing. It's not like it's throwing error messages or just like crashing or whatever. It's just waiting.
It
It's
and
waiting for the lock to be released.
because it's waiting, everything else, the line behind it just keeps stacking up, so the
Yeah.
queue
Yeah.
just gets crazy. Okay.
Yeah. And one like the obvious thing there is like, just have better timeouts there. So it doesn't wait like for 2 hours, but like maybe a minute or so, and then it just like stops.
Mhm.
But the library we're using for this has timeout settings, and once I tighten them up, like stuff just instantly freezes and doesn't work. So
Yeah. Yeah,
it's
that's
super strange.
the problem. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, is there any chance at all that, I mean, not to blame, the vendor or to blame the library, is there any chance at all that it's the library that you're using to hand things off to through Redis to Sidekick?
Um I yeah, probably. I mean, I don't know. It might
Yeah.
be a combination of how this library is implemented and
Mhm.
just our specific circumstances. And I might have found a fix earlier today, but I'm not entirely sure. Like
Yeah.
this is one of those problems where it does like you can never know if you fixed it because it might not be the
Yeah,
circumstances that
exactly.
didn't show
Yeah.
up again.
Yeah.
And I
Man.
think it might be related to so we use Action Cable for like WebSocket connections for the in-app messaging.
Yep.
And there was some code in that particular part of the application that also acquired one of those locks on basically when setting the unique key to ensure like we don't put the same job in there more than once and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And I'm having a suspicion that whenever the connection gets dropped, either by the client disconnecting or the server restarting, it basically doesn't unlock. Like it acquires the lock, then the connection gets dropped, the WebSocket connection gets dropped, and it
Yep.
doesn't release the lock on Redis. And once at this point the connection is gone, and then all other processes that try to acquire the same lock will never
Yeah.
get it because
Can't
nobody's
get
ever
it.
releasing it. I fixed that part. It doesn't make a lot of sense in terms of why would it not release those locks, but I mean, I
You've
don't
at
know.
least
It's
specifically addressed that
yeah.
potential issue. Yeah. Yeah. What does the user see? Like when what's the experience on the I guess the customer side when you wake up and jobs have been delayed for some hours at a time?
Yeah,
Is
so
your customer support box also filled up, or there's a bit of a delay there?
there's just basically it's just a delay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like this morning we had one email from a customer who reported that they're seeing a lot of 500 error messages in segment,
Mhm.
which also like in a way which just brought me like pointed me in this direction of like the sidekick at the WebSockets because in theory the web server dyno shouldn't acquire those logs ever because it's basically related to background processing, but because we did stuff a little bit differently in the WebSocket stuff, it locked there, and that also caused, like, let's say one lock was acquired, the connection died, didn't release the lock, and then this exact same user reconnected their WebSocket, it would again try to acquire the same lock, which would not work. It would wait forever and basically tie up this thread in the web server. And at some point, if that happens often enough, like all the processes or all the threads in the web server are just stuck. And at that point, we are also not processing any data from Segment anymore. And I think Heroku will just like return timeout errors 5.0, whatever. Right. And I think that's what they noticed. And I hope by just like removing that code that acquired that log, that I'm at least freeing up the web dynos to not freeze up anymore. But yeah, that's wishful thinking, I guess.
It's at least within the bounds of rational.
Yeah,
I mean, you're not just like, you're not stabbing in the dark. It's at least an educated guess. But I mean, I wonder if you'll end up seeing that it's just random combination of 3 or 4 different things that you have to thing around.
It's one of those things where, like, right now I'm considering, like, well, one thing I'm doing for today is like, let's wait and see what happens tonight. For some reason, it only happens at night. I explicitly tried restarting the Heroku dynos a couple times throughout the day just to try to see if I can force it to fail again. Wasn't able to until now. I will try after this recording a couple more times.
Anything to do with which time zone a particular large customer might be in?
Maybe I don't know. I mean,
you're joking about the bed thing, but like if that really does feel consistent, then well, okay, maybe there's some time zone goofiness going on here.
It's been the second time, and it also, funny enough, it also coincides. What's the correct term? Yeah, coincides. It coincides with restarts of like the dynos in Heroku when we deploy a new version. And we have like this automated dependency management tool that basically merges minor patches in the gem file automatically and then deploys them automatically. And one of those deploys and restarts triggered the deadlock and then started filling up the queues. So as I said, it's a weird combination of things that play into this. And I'll probably go to bed a little bit later today because it always happened around midnight local time around here. So I will just stay up for that and then maybe try to restart a couple times and see if it deadlocks again. And if not, then maybe I got lucky. But other than that, I'm currently looking at just replacing that library, the unique jobs library, with actually considering to just buy Sidekick Enterprise because it's one of those things that I just want to work, and it's worth the money at this point.
How's your sleep? How's your sleep generally? Feels like it's been
it's better
thread here.
It's better? It's better, yeah. I got 8 hours of sleep, which was a problem in this case because it took me 8 hours. It took me 8 hours to notice this problem. But other than that, I'm sleeping better recently. I think basically decreasing our salaries, moving the end of cash, like the zero cash date, further in the future by more than a year. That removed a lot of anxiety. I don't know. It's just nothing fundamentally changed. It's still the same money in the bank and stuff like that, but it just like removed a lot of pressure. Let's see like how things change tonight when I know that things might break. But other than that, it's okay.
Well, good luck.
Yeah.
With it. What besides that, you got a. Can you hear my dog barking? He's like right above me, yapping away.
Yeah.
Do you hear that?
I can hear your dog barking, but it's not as bad as neighbors drilling. So I think we should be fine.
Okay, cool. Well, I'll we'll
Yeah.
work with it then. Yeah. What else you got? You got a decent list of things happening, man. I guess it's 2 weeks
Yeah.
worth of things. We had that amazing
Yeah.
guest last.
We had
It's just
a
the
great
best.
episode last week with 80. That was, I'm still thinking back to the conversation and
Same here.
still,
Same here. That book is so good.
yeah. Yeah. I'm still having like positive thoughts about all the things you mentioned and seeing things a little bit more in terms of life profitability. And it's not all about the money. And yeah, things might not be nice in a financial sense, but still getting some energy of just like working with nice people and stuff like that. So yeah, having fun thoughts about this episode. But in the last 2 weeks, a couple of things happened, and I want to give some shout outs because as feedback or like triggered by one of our previous episodes, Michael Christophides of Piggy Mustard reached out to me 2 weeks ago or so, and they run a tool that helps with Postgres explains. So when you analyze your database queries, they help you visualize them. And I mentioned, I think in that particular episode, I mentioned 2 other tools that do this, like open source tools, but they have like a pay tool that does a similar thing. And he reached out and offered his help to just like chat about the problems I'm seeing and just like give some feedback on what I can try. And we had that call, and that was super helpful. Like he helped me think through some things, and it was nice to just like talk to someone who's has a deep understanding about Postgres and the database in general. And I also gave their tool a try because I figured, hey, why not? I mean, can't hurt. And as you said, they do a similar thing like the other tools. Like just you paste your explain output into their tool, and then they visualize it. But what they then did on top of that, what was like they give you a list of recommendation of things to try, and that's the part the other tools don't do. And I had
awesome.
Like I basically used the output of the explain after I made the last optimization, where I was fairly confident that like I tried everything possible and there's nothing else I can do anymore. So so I pasted it in there, and it instantly came up with 3 suggestions on how to improve it. And I was like, okay, bye. This is worth the money, and it's like
This is it. Done. Yeah.
it's like $90 a year or something like that. Like it's ridiculously cheap. It was like I didn't use the full 5 queries to analyze for the trial. I just like did the first one and instantly thought like
Got it done.
done, bought, whatever. That's really great. Like I mean, I think that's the big advantage that their tool has, is that it actually looks at the results and then points out, hey, here's this particular thing happening, and this is bad because I don't know, whatever, gives you a nice explanation. And also gives like some recommendation what you can try to solve it or what you can try to fix it. And they combine it with like a rating, so you can instantly see like, okay, this has a rating of 0.1, so it's probably not worth even looking into it. But it goes like up to 5, and one of the suggestions they had a rating of 3.8 or something like that, so it's pretty significant. So yeah, wanted just to give a shout out to their tool and to Michael in particular. This was a helpful conversation, so check out PG Mustard and check out their founders, their co-founder team. They know their stuff, obviously. What was also nice, I wanted to thank 2 of our listeners who reached out, like I think unsolicited, without any reason, but like send in support requests without a support request, just like saying, hey, wanted to say thank you. Didn't like Michael of Agile Extensions was like, hey, this new companies feature is probably unlocking some growth opportunities for me, and just wanted to say thank you for that.
That's
so that
awesome.
was super nice. And then Jacob of what's the company name? Sustainable Labs or something like that. Sorry if I got it wrong. We put a link in the show notes. He reached out just like thanking us for just building user lists in general because they're using it in a client project. They're a consultancy, and their customers super happy with it. And he basically forwarded those thanks and invited me to join him for a sailing trip sometime in Denmark. So
That's
that was
amazing.
that was super nice. And like I think we got it Saturday night on a weekend, and it was like one of the
That's
nicest
amazing.
emails I got all week. So thanks a lot for that.
That's so cool. Substance Lab,
Substance
substancelab.com.
Lab, yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't remember. I should have put it in the notes.
All good, man. It's there now.
So that was super nice, and I really appreciate those emails. And I also want to give a shout out to Rob Walling and Derek Reimer, who had a call with us last week, I think. Just like talking about technical architecture and infrastructure for our new marketing feature direction. Basically, talking through all the things they learned in Drip and what we can improve or cannot improve and shouldn't do or whatever. And that was a super helpful conversation. In parts, like just to learn about some potential problems ahead of time, just so we can start thinking about it, how to avoid them. And also, the other part was just like confirming some of the ideas we had on how to architect and build things. So that was also super helpful. And I want to give a shout out to them.
Totally. Listeners who don't know, Rob Walling is the serial entrepreneur who runs a conference called MicroConf. So we'll be sure to link to that in the we'll link to that one in the show notes so that you
and Derek is a co-host of a totally unknown podcast called Out of Product, who nobody ever listens to.
Hey, how's the how's your Ruby gem going? You've got that here too. That's
that part is done as well. So I guess we were productive before we had to deal with production issues again. So the userless Ruby gem is out in the new version. The Ruby on Rails gem is out in the new version. Both do company tracking and relationship tracking out of the box. We have a couple of users actually using it, and it seems to work. Hooray!
Yeah.
So that happened 2 weeks ago.
So back, I want to kind of close the loop on that one, because when you or just come back to something we talked about when you were initially doing that, you outsourced the very like 0.1 version of that, right? Wasn't that you were kind of experimenting with outsourcing the gem?
It was a similar thing, but for the PHP and Laravel versions. We tried outsourcing those,
you're
but
right. Okay.
that didn't work out so well.
Okay.
I always took care of the Ruby and Rails stuff myself. It always felt like the master version in a way, like the gold standard.
Yeah.
But it was a tricky one. Like there were a lot of edge cases in there that I hadn't anticipated. But I think this version works well enough. So yeah, hope we can eventually like do the same thing in other libraries and other languages. But I wanted to solve or find answers to all those questions in the Ruby gem first, then in the Rails gem, because I feel like I only have to solve those problems once, and then I can like build similar things in other languages. I think that's this way around is easier than trying to come up with unique solutions for all platforms or whatever.
Yeah.
So that happened 2 weeks ago, and then last week I kind of took a detour and didn't build any of the things I should be building. But instead, we built support for outgoing webhooks, and based on that, an internal like first version of a Slack integration. Because like outgoing webhooks is a recurring request. People keep asking about, and we were always like, it's on the to-do list. It will come eventually. but we didn't build it so far. And now we have like at least the backend infrastructure for it, and we can wire it up for them in the database, and it will just work. So the next time someone wants to sync like the unsubscribes or whatever to their tool, we can finally say yes. It's a little bit weird to set up, but we can make it work. So that feels good. It's a small
Congrats. Win. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, awesome. That was a nice detour in a way, just like quick and dirty, just like build something that kind of works, and then we can build up from there. Yeah, and the last thing I want to mention is, in case you're looking for more podcasts to listen to, that brings me to another thing that I should probably mention. We put our first non-founder team member on our About Us page. So we're not a founder-only team anymore.
It feels like you buried the lead there. That's huge.
Yes, I totally forget to mention it, because Angie, who's been doing our podcast production for the last 3 months or so for Better Done Than Perfect, she did a bunch of research, and that's the point I wanted to talk about initially. Is she did a bunch of research and collected a list of 50 plus SaaS podcasts, like from similar podcasts to this one, like Founder Chats, to like highly super quality production podcasts about startups and SaaS applications and things like that. And she compiled a list of 50 plus of those and published it on our blog. And we're so happy about that we decided, okay, we can't publish it under one of our names. It has to be under her name, because she put in a lot of work on this. And that's when we also decided, hey, we should probably put her on the team's page as well. So we are officially not a 2-founder team anymore.
Another congratulations in order there, man. You had a big couple weeks.
Yeah, looking back at it, it's been like quite eventful.
No wonder you're exhausted. Get some sleep.
Yeah. I mean, the last 2 weeks have been productive in a way, but this feels like this week I'm just like waking up, fixing stuff, and by noon I'm exhausted and I'm done for the day, I guess.
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
good stuff.
But that's about it. Nothing else happened.
Nothing else other than all sorts of huge news.
Yeah.
Congrats.
What's up with you? I noticed that you published your game on Tabletopia, and I
did.
I haven't played it yet, but I at least watched your video, so I'm excited to give it a try.
Yes. Well, so in board game news, I posted that how to play video a solid like week and a half or 2 weeks after I had intended to, but it ended up being a lot of work. Whatever. Like, I didn't want to spend a whole entire day, edit, cut, because like the rules are still so much in flux right now that I just didn't even a few of the things I was like, oh, this could seriously be out of date in like a week or 2 weeks. So then I ended up just being like, okay, just start playing through. And so, it's pretty casual. There are some things that I would definitely change about it, but it is out there. So I posted it on my Twitter page. We'll put it in the show notes here, but it does give a visual run through of the game on Tabletopia. I also did a fair amount of work on the rule book, which is a open Google Docs. Google Doc for now. Which is really terrible at graphics. It's impossible to lay things out, which is fine. I'm not trying to, complain about a word processor being bad at layout, but there's a point at which, okay, well, you need to switch this over to something a little bit less frustrating. But so hopefully, for people who like to read rule books, and I like to read rule books, there's a rule book with some images, and I'll keep throwing images in there. if you take a look at it and something's confusing, just comment. I think comments should be open on it. So that felt like a really big step in terms of getting it outside of our little circle. So, um, yeah, so Graham and I have Graham's my co-designer on this. We've we've played it. We've played it through two times. I've played it with my wife a couple times. We've done like 5, I think, other play tests with other friends, and I mean, the bones are there. Like it's surprisingly solid at this stage, which we did not expect for all of the mechanisms, to work together to create the system of the game that they're doing really well. Um, there are some flawed cards that if they come up at the wrong time, like it's just death, which is not a satisfying, experience as a
As
player.
in
So, there,
as in
go ahead.
death of the hiker or death of the
Yes.
game.
The hiker, like, there are some situations that you can get yourself into where, one just tiny wrong decision ends the game, and, so we're, like, figuring out ways to, to put some buffer in there to fix those things, but, yeah, it feels as a quote, as an MVP, it is, like, surprisingly playable. It's fun. It's fun. So we've got some more work to do. We've got a couple of more play tests lined up this week, and, in addition to the how to play video, some work on the rule book, I posted it to, Board Game Geek, which is basically indie hackers. So, like, the playtesting equals user testing, Board Game Geek equals indie hackers, um, and documentation equals rulebook, or rulebook equals documentation. Like, so many fun little overlaps there. But so posted there. I just need to kind of keep it like that page lively, to start requesting some play tests from, you know people who have no relationship to us whatsoever, who are willing to give the rules a look and then hop on a Zoom call in Tabletopia and play it through. So it's 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 very exciting. It's wild. It feels really fun to to have it at this point. It's crazy.
Yeah, like it looks super interesting in the video. I was a little bit surprised in terms of like the setup seemed a little bit complicated, or at least a little bit overwhelming. Like
Yep.
from a no connection to it whatsoever, it felt like
Yeah.
there's a lot to do and a lot of stuff to think about. And I think in Tabletop you already set up a bunch of things. I wonder,
Yep.
like, if you'd play this at home on your tabletop, like, would you spend like 30 minutes just setting things up, or is it not as bad as that?
So well, yeah. So to kind of establish where it is on the spectrum of games, as it is, this would be described as a medium weight game.
Mhm.
So, uh, so if you've not played, many modern board games at all, like Catan or Ticket to Ride, or things like that, then it will look like, oh, holy moly! If your experience to games, so far has been, traditional things like, Trivial Pursuit or Clue, or party games like Scattergories, things like that, then it would feel overwhelming. You know, at the far end of the spectrum, if you've played, you know, Twilight Imperium, or the new Dune game, or things like that, then it's like, okay, yeah, this is how setup works. Um, and so it, that's kind of that is definitely a piece of this, is like on when if you want to, schedule a playthrough, one of the questions is, what exposure to modern board games, do you have? Are you like at a 1, 2, or a 3? And so, because setup for this game, if I had the the version in my hand, like setup is probably 5 to 10 minutes, in actuality, compared to some other games I've got that yeah, it does take they can take some time to set up, but once you get the hang of it, it's just like boom, 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 and um, so yeah, it's a good question. It's something I had in my notes was like, um, what, how, if you haven't, if you played board games growing up, but you haven't revisited them in a while, and your idea of what board games could be is Clue and Monopoly and things like that. There's this whole new world that has emerged over the past 15 years, and most especially over the past 5. And so if it seems interesting and you kind of want to dip your toe in, like what's this about, then first of all, hit me up on Twitter and I'd be more than happy to talk to you about board games all day long. But check out either Settlers of Catan or Carcassonne or Ticket to Ride. Those are really great gateway games to what modern board games look like and act like.
I can at least claim that I played Carcassonne
Mhm.
in the recent history. Like I think we got ourselves. Like I used to play it like 20 years ago or something like that
Yeah.
when it probably first came out, but we
Yep.
rediscovered it like was it last year or the year before? It's just
Mhm.
like it's a lot of fun. Just
Yeah.
like building out this map and just like
Yes.
battling for like meadows or
Yes. Yes. The
secretly
farmers.
counting who's owning
Who's
this
got
part
the
of the map.
city? Yep.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, it's a lot of
Yeah,
fun.
that is a great, 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 great game. Well, so that's where I'm at right now. It's out there. So now I gotta keep our Board Game Geek thread, our Indie Hackers thread alive, and just keep posting some updates to it. Throw some more graphics in there, make it super enticing. Um, the feedback that we've gotten from the people who have played it through is that the theme is just so solid, and the cards that you can get, the terrain that you land on, the things that you can craft, it all feels really, really like spot on in terms of theming. So that feels really great on the creative side. We just have to dial in some of the effects and the way that the game punches back at the players. um, some of those things are a little overpowered. So
Mhm.
it's this is still the fun part. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that's probably the hardest part as well. Like anticipating all the possible combinations how this might play out, and then like getting the
Yeah.
balancing right. I feel like yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
that's
It's really,
probably
really hard.
it's probably also one of those things where you have to give like just accept that it's good enough at some point, isn't it? Like I feel like there are like even published games have like some like combinations where like if this thing happens, you just like you either instantly
Yep.
win or instantly lose, and there's no way
Yes.
around it because that's just like how the game
For
is.
for sure. For sure. What we have working for us right now is that qualitative feedback is is still so incredibly valid. You know, um, and so we don't need 20 play tests to confirm that one particular combination wrecks an experience,
Yeah.
just like software. And then yes, at some point, like we have to accept that we're not going to be able to account for every single combination and just get it out there. There's I mean, extremely famous game called Scythe. I mean, I think it's like in the top 15 ranked, games on Board Game Geek. Um, and they had a couple thousand hours of play tests before they released it. It's an extremely successful game. And then after they released it, within a couple of months, they had to release an update and like ban a particular, faction and board combo because it was too easy to win with it. And so, like, okay, cool. If Scythe can do it, we can do it. We can suggest that everybody scribble out one thing on a tile if we have to at some point down the road. So yeah, it's a little bit freeing in that sense, but but at the same time, we have couple hundred hours of tests before, at least I feel that way, like at least before we're ready to start thinking about either bootstrapping by going on Kickstarter or trying to raise VC money and pitch publishers. So
I love it.
Yeah. Well, so anyway, yeah, that's all I've got. Would love to hear from people who've got some board game experience. If you want to jump on Tabletopia with me and give it a spin, or if you don't at all, then I would love to also talk to you. And yeah, tell you why board games are the best thing in the world for for the antidote to social media and screen time.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, we should totally schedule a playthrough at some point.
Yeah, yes, let's do it.
Yeah,
let's do it. That'd be so rad. Cool. I'll follow up with you.
Yeah.
Okay, doke. Well, that's all I've got. No, that's all I've got.
Yeah.
Good week.
I don't have anything else either. It's been plenty, I guess. So, everyone have a nice week, and talk to you next week. Bye.